us on DD India. You're watching DD Dialogue. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and BIMSTEC completes 25 years of the journey that began in Bangkok way back in June 1997. And many experts are of the opinion that India has played a key role in rejuvenating the regional body since 2014. In fact, Prime Minister virtually attended the 5th BIMSTEC summit earlier today. Sri Lanka, the BIMSTEC's current chair, also hosted the event in virtual mode, where our Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi, gave a clarion call of making Bay of Bengal the bridge of connectivity. He talked about prosperity and security and much more. Today on the show, on DD Dialogue, we speak about the basic import or the larger message as far as India's outreach in this edition of BIMSTEC Summit is concerned, and we examine, can India lead the way in BIMSTEC scheme of things, or can India lead the way in BIMSTEC grouping? Let me quickly go across to our panelists on the show. Ambassador Venu Rajamoni, former Ambassador of India to Netherlands, joining us on the show. He was also the permanent representative of India to the Organization for Prohibition of Chemical Weapons in The Hague. In fact, he was also somebody responsible for India's relationship with the ICJ, and currently is empaneled with the Jindal International School of Law. Thank you very much, Ambassador Moni, for joining us on the show. It's an honor to have, namaste, it's an honor to have Ambassador Shilkant Sharma with us, the former Secretary General of the SAARC grouping. He's also served, he's also the former ambassador to Austria, and he's also the expert on energy matters, joining us on the show today on DD Dialogue. Thank you very much, Ambassador Shilkant, for joining us. Namaste. Also welcoming Dr. Sumriti S. Patnaik, Research Fellow from IDSA. Specialization includes South Asia and India's neighborhood policy. Thank you so much, ma'am, again for being with us. And a very special guest, Shrimal Fernando, Academic Specialist in International Relations and Foreign Policy. Our guest from Colombo, Sri Lanka, the current host. In fact, the BIMSTEC concludes, but he continues to be special for us, joining us all the way from Colombo again. So India's BIMSTEC outreach, can India lead the way? I'm going to quickly throw it open to our panelists, and over to you, Ambassador Rajamani. Now, why do you think, or if at all you think, that the larger import of this particular edition, if you've gone through the MEA statement and Honorable Prime Minister's virtual address as well, has been different in many ways, where India actually is not only looked up to but takes center stage in many matters, especially the security vertical of it, because the briefing also mentioned India will be leading the security pillar. Ambassador Muni.
Sakal, I think this summit is very significant. This is the 25th anniversary since BIMSTEC was founded. BIMSTEC has been making slow, incremental progress, but so far it has been full of pious aspirations rather than concrete action. In this summit, a significant step has been made to move forward in building institutional capacities. The most important document signed was the charter of the BIMSTEC itself. In fact, it's surprising that for 25 years it has functioned without a charter, but at least now there is a structure. And going beyond the charter, a clear mandate has been given to strengthen institutional capacities. India is backing that mandate with about $1 million of money for the Secretariat to strengthen this. 3 other agreements were signed. One on connectivity, a master plan on connectivity, second on legal enforcement, and the third one on foreign service training institutes cooperating with each other. But beyond that, what is important truly is the call that Prime Minister made that Bay of Bengal should become a bridge for connectivity, for prosperity, and for security. These 3 words show what are, in India's view, what should be the priorities of BIMSTEC. And if you look at the Foreign Minister's speech, the Foreign Minister has also clearly outlined that India will throw its full weight behind BIMSTEC because, number one, as part of its neighborhood first policy, BIMSTEC is in its immediate neighborhood. Secondly, as part of its Sagar policy, India is committed to exploiting the full potential of the maritime domain. And thirdly, as India has always done in the region as the biggest country, as the strongest country, as the country with the maximum resources, that we will be a first responder whenever there is a humanitarian crisis, whenever there is a climate-related event, wherever we can help, we can reach quickly, we will be there for all BIMSTEC countries.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Institutionalization of disaster management exercises and the purpose and principles as far as the charter is concerned. Ambassador Shrikant, coming to you, sir. Same question, but your thoughts on it. And the larger, point, I wouldn't say issue that we are examining is that at the end of the 5th edition and 2014, the distance covered, especially the issues that India has pressed upon, and this time around, in the wake of the developments, the geopolitics, Ukraine, Russia, SARC grouping, there's so much that's happening. What is your sense? What is your sense as far as India's position is concerned in BIMSTEC grouping?
It is now almost more than 8 years, and India since 2014, and India has been consistently emphasizing that it is ready to play, a contributory role, a major role in the regional cooperation network. And every which way India has tried. Like, if you just recall, 2014, Prime Minister Modi in his swearing-in invited leaders of South Asian countries. Thereafter, when we had the SARC summit, again he emphasized India's commitment and contribution. Thereafter, when Nepal had a problem, India was the first responder, and we went all out to help.
Yes.
Then, when the pandemic hit us, the Prime Minister again reached out to SARC countries and in our neighborhood and said that we should work together, because you find a very consistent thread of India's involvement with the region. And as has been mentioned, the neighborhood first policy, and then we have put money where our mouth is. India has been forthcoming with financial contribution and everything else, like setting up the centers, a disaster center in India, and also for energy and security. So India is playing with our neighbors as an equal partner. They don't feel that India is trying to tower above them, but India's capacities are such, because of the size, that they can always give more. That's why I think budgetary contribution, I think, is some 32.5% in the SARC charter, and so it is in the BIMSTEC charter as well. And then Prime Minister has announced $1 million contribution for setting up the institutional system, which is very important, because that's where the ownership lies. The Secretariat of BIMSTEC has been functioning a bit fitfully in the last several years, but India wants to streamline its functioning and to give support which is needed. So the Secretary General, who's from Bhutan, now he gets the full support, and he can organize. The thing is that between summits and between foreign ministers' meetings, it is the Secretariat which pushes the agenda.
Correct.
This has been so with SARC, and that's why there was need to strengthen SARC. And this is the mechanism again with BIMSTEC. It is so with ASEAN also.
Okay.
So for regional cooperation, you need high commitment, which is there at the summit. It is the very strongest commitment from India and from all the other leaders, because they accepted the charter and these 3 MOUs which Ambassador Venu described, and pushing the agenda for regional cooperation. So this is at the highest level commitment.
Okay.
Then there is the Secretariat which should push the agenda in between summits and in between big meetings, so that they are not just one-off events. There is a continuous momentum of regional cooperation, which is very vital. Vital.
Yes. Let's also move on, and let me take this point of the regional commitment, cooperation, and the momentum. And Fernando, I'm coming to you now. Sri Lanka's perspective. India says it was a satisfactory summit from our Indian perspective, but as a host, as a chair, Sri Lanka's view on not only the interventions made by the Prime Minister, but India's what all India actually brings to the table. Srinando, and how Sri Lanka looks at India, the regional cooperation bit, the framework bit when it comes to the security vertical, etc.
Firstly, what India brings to the table is that India is strengthening its neighborhood first policy and Act East policy, or the Look East Asia policy. This bridges South Asia with East Asia. And also, when it comes to identification of projects, like the $126 billion worth of project on connectivity infrastructure with East Asia and South Asia are key pillars in this new paradigm, as well as the shift that India is planning to support, as well as small nations like Sri Lanka, where it links up with small littoral states in the Indian Ocean, as well as linking to the main hub India, is the key that giving a gateway to all the small nations like Nepal, Bhutan, and even Sri Lanka from the south, links up with the rest of the Western Indian Ocean. So the point over here is India's foreign policy is getting strengthened, as well as South Asia as a region with BIMSTEC is linking up with East Asia, and our economic endeavors for this region is.
Are you trying to say a stronger India in BIMSTEC scheme of things also lends a lot of strength to other nations, like smaller nations, you're saying? Is that what you're trying to also imply?
Yeah, because India and South Asia together has a $3.8 trillion GDP, right? Okay. So being the largest out of that, with mostly 74% of the economy is Indian dominated. So all these countries, smaller nations, middle nations, are interdependent with the bigger nation.
All right.
India's growth is South Asia's growth, and the link up with East Asia is a key shift.
Okay, let me take that very point to Dr. Patnaik. Ma'am, your thoughts on it, India's role and the points that Fernando made, India's role vis-a-vis other nations and their alignment with India. And let me quickly add to that, there could be divergences in the issues as well, naturally. So everybody has to be on the same page on certain things?
I would say that perhaps India is in a position to play a leadership role. Within the SAARC, it could not play that kind of role because of the regional, there is opposition regionally to allow India to play such kind of role. But I really do not see such kind of constraint exist as far as BIMSTEC is concerned. As Mr. Fernando was also mentioning that, given the size of the GDP, the economy, and over the period of time, the regional integration which India has been trying to, to implement in terms of the connectivity network. And today also we heard Prime Minister speaking about the grid connectivity, which already is existing between Nepal, Bhutan, India, and Bangladesh, which is mostly work in progress. And this can be extended. There are also talks about such kind of energy cooperation between India and Sri Lanka. So when one looks at this, already the existing framework, both bilaterally and in the sub-regional framework, I think this is a good step where India can play a leading role in, seeing that such connectivity happens. The second is this issue of strengthening the secretariat. I think it is a much needed effort which India has made in terms of not just the contribution of $1 million, but also in terms of saying that there has to be an EPG which can, prepare a vision document for the secretariat. Because once the vision document is prepared, I think it will make it much easier. And unlike SAARC, India is less ambitious in terms of the BIMSTEC. Like for example, the summit meeting, it has been said that once in 2 years the summit meeting will take place. Whereas the foreign ministers meeting will take place every year. I think that is a significant step as far as BIMSTEC is concerned. I would say that in terms of the integration of this part, the BIMSTEC countries, already there is a foundation. Already there are networks which is there. So it is how you are leveraging the existing transport and energy network to make it, for a regional cooperation within the BIMSTEC framework. So I would say that is very significant. The only thing which I was a bit disappointed that we have been talking about the BIMSTEC FTA, and that is something which has not yet been signed, and this is being talked about for a very long time.
Since you talked about the FTA, Prime Minister has called upon BIMSTEC nations. Ambassador Venu, to you, that FTA point. And I recently also read about your article, in fact yesterday only, on the BIMSTEC need for the framework, specific frameworks, right, in specific areas. And talking about FTA, Prime Minister has called upon BIMSTEC nations to make progress on that proposal of FTA. So, well, India has made it clear that this is important for India and the rest of the members as well. Ambassador.
Sakal, I entirely agree with the previous panelists that FTA is extremely important and BIMSTEC must make progress towards it. But at the same time, conclusion of any FTA is never an easy task. It involves the sort of building complementarities within the economies and trying to move forward to liberalize trade, while at the same time making sure that certain core interests and core sections of business within the country is not completely undermined. So I'm sure that discussions will be taken up in earnest. We cannot hope for miracles overnight, but that certainly is on top of the agenda. But going beyond that, what I was particularly happy about, and you referred to my article, that is the emphasis on the maritime domain. We must realize that as countries which are literal to the Bay of Bengal, as countries which are all around the Bay of Bengal, a grouping which has been named after the Bay of Bengal, there is urgent need to focus on the problems of the Bay of Bengal. The growing pollution, the unsustainable fishing, the piracy in the region, the security challenges, conflicts and tensions between countries on account of fishermen crossing over from one territorial boundary into the other. A whole set of issues in the Bay of Bengal region need to be addressed with urgency. There is today a sort of a zero oxygen zone within the Bay of Bengal, which some scientists believe is growing. No fish can live within that zero oxygen zone because of pollution. And throughout the region, like across the world, there are more and more population shifting to coastal areas because it is very attractive to live in coastal areas. Urban growth is happening with great speed in coastal areas, but the consequences of this population shift and urban growth is all going into the water. Okay. So urgently, countries of the region have to come together and discuss how they are going to curb pollution of the Bay of Bengal, how they are going to clean up Bay of Bengal.
Okay. As a whole, Bay of Bengal and this Ambassador Shilkant sir, this grouping emerging as a force to reckon with, and of late we've also seen some sort of direct or indirect reference / comparison or the relevance of SAARC versus relevance of BIMSTEC, etc. If you could just kind of, because you the former DG of the SAARC as well, so you know, first of all, snubbing the debate, how do you look at that comparison? Do you think there has to be a comparison? Secondly, Prime Minister mentioned, there was a specific mention about the recent developments in Europe, which has put a question mark on the stability of international order. So, direct or indirect reference to what is happening in the other part of the globe.
Well, you know, about SAARC, I think I was listening to your discussion in the afternoon also of yesterday's discussion. And I think the point then made, and I want to repeat that point, that let's not confuse BIMSTEC with SAARC. SAARC has its own trajectory, it's at its own locus. And if you look at it, SAARC already had a SAFTA. It had a free trade agreement. It also had a free trade agreement in services. But it was all in paper, you know, and free trade agreements have a whole, corpus. You know, you may have an agreement, but you may have sensitive list. You may have, non-tariff barriers. So all this stuff in SAARC they have been grappling with when SAARC ran aground. And I want to also mention, since you asked the question, when I was leading SAARC 2008 to 11, most of my time I was lucky. The relationship was actually even keel. And we managed to do a lot of things then. So, but afterwards it ran aground and things somehow could not be picked up. But then the second thing is that, you know, SAARC began with a charter, but it ran aground. In BIMSTEC, you worked, you played by the ear and gradually picked up the momentum. And now is the time to put it down on paper so that you have a structure. it is a good process because whatever you have done in the past stays behind you. And this has been the system with other regional organizations too. So the third point is that, we must steer clear of the negativity. As we say in the mathematical language, we should stay in the first quadrant. In the sense,
yes.
if you see the graph, you might go slow, but there is no negativity, there is no zero-sum game. Now, the importance of BIMSTEC is that there is no zero-sum game in any of the countries who are members of BIMSTEC. So there is always whatever you put in, you will get the reward. So need it to increase the input. Then you ask about the international situation. Yes, Prime Minister's message is salutary. He says that the world is uncertain, but we can lend certainty to our situation by forging our cooperation linkages in this manner through resilience economy, through health and prosperity, through all these, and the agenda which is before BIMSTEC is actually open, where we can move forward in each vista. So, and this way actually we can pull ourselves together, and we have a huge population, we have a huge GDP, and
does this also include, very quickly, countering expansionist designs of other countries as well, which are also part of the Bay of Bengal? I'm sure you know what I'm referring to.
Well, I would not go into these things, because if you look at the charter, generally they steer clear of political issues. Security is certainly there, but security in a concrete sense, in a positive sense, that security helps us build the economies and it prevents the pitfalls.
Yes.
So in that sense, security is there, but political issues and political misgivings, if we waste our time discussing them, we are actually eroding our will. So I am old-fashioned Sarkist, where we constantly concentrated on the economy side, and tried to build as much as you can. You see, if you want to discuss all the things, then even in the best of times, there is a phrase in diplomacy that best is the enemy of good. So let's not do too many things.
No, we're not going to steer the discussion.
And I want to mention Venu's article. I also saw it. Sure. It makes an important point that the BIMSTEC agenda has those 14 points. There is a need to trim them to that there is more concise and pointed focus. I think that is an important point, and I think this has been addressed at this summit, which is another plus from Colombo. Another
plus, right. I'm going to just quickly basically try and wrap up and have concluding remarks. I'm going to start with Dr. Smriti. Yes, ma'am. So going back to the storyboard, can India lead BIMSTEC?
I think in terms of, I saw a few statements which Prime Minister spoke about the disaster risk management and the exercises. I think those two are extremely significant, because India is a leading country as far as disaster management in the subcontinent is concerned, and that is where India can contribute much more in terms of whether it is joint exercise, whether it is a country as the first responder in the neighborhood. So therefore, I would say that in terms of what India can bring to the table would be in terms of the security, because security is not just confined to military, it is much more of this kind of security which is going to probably be very, very significant, whether it's terrorism, whether it's disaster management, coastal security. I think these are some of the issues where India can play a leading role, because India already has the resource to play that kind of role which we are thinking of in terms of the BIMSTEC context.
All right. Fernando, would you like to add to that, and what would be your concluding remarks, India leading BIMSTEC?
Yes, India is the leader, and also the sub-regional organization of BIMSTEC's new charter is a golden opportunity for the 7 members that links East Asia as well as South Asia. And I could see a new paradigm shift in the foreign policy manifestation because of India's way forward with sub-regional organizations like BIMSTEC or BPIN, or even with SAARC. I mean, it all solidifies the region, and it gives a push for all small economies as well as mid economies in the region. And so it's a new definition of regionalism in a new diplomatic tenor. Thank you.
And how does Sri Lanka view you? You've spoken about India, but the Sri Lankan perspective, Sri Lanka bringing lots to the table?
Yes, I mean, when it comes to Sri Lanka, the eastern part links the Bay of Bengal, right? So it's a huge, and Bay of Bengal is one of the largest bays that connects the Pacific as well as the Indian Ocean. So also it gives a security diameter for India, because this is the southern part for India's security linkage with Andaman, Nicobar Islands and Maldives and Sri Lanka. So India's presence in BIMSTEC is an important thing. Also, Sri Lanka interdepends with India's security dynamics, because it's only just 22 nautical miles off the southern coast of Tamil Nadu. So we view India to the north as a very important partner. It's also a historical partner, bonded, I mean, to 2 million years, and that gives us a trust and a guarantee from a small island point of view. And also the small island, these islands have the island mentality, Maldives or Seychelles or Reunion Islands, and even Mauritius. So this India, so it's a different dynamics when it comes to island.
You've virtually drawn the Bay of Bengal.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. All right. Ambassador Venu, sir, concluding remarks, and I'll take concluding remarks from Ambassador Shilkant also.
Well, I think it is very clear for anybody who has seen the BIMSTEC and studied it that capacities will be slow to build. Incremental progress has to be made. As Ambassador Shilkant Sharma said, SAARC is a different organization altogether. But India has already indicated very clearly that it is willing to put its weight behind BIMSTEC. It will do everything possible to move BIMSTEC forward. And I think with the cooperation of all member countries, a great deal can be achieved before we have the next summit and before the next foreign ministers meeting.
Okay. Yes, Ambassador Shilkant.
You know, I'd like to emphasize that the profile of the organization has gone up, and India has done immense contribution in that process. If you remember the BRICS summit which took place in India, India invited BIMSTEC to be part of that.
Yes, yes.
So India feels responsible to also take a go to the world
side
with
retreat.
BIMSTEC.
Yes.
With BIMSTEC. That is important because people talk about it and they develop stakes. We need to now get fruits of our early efforts. So some success is necessary so that people can taste things which are very relevant. Trade is one area where these things can happen, but health is another area, and this connectivity is another area. And these areas, if you make progress, people will feel committed and they sense it. So we'll get a larger support from not only government bureaucracies but academia, media, and social sector. So social media. So this is necessary because we have large population. People are very alert. Some of the most educated, like Sri Lanka, for instance, its education credentials are very high. They're 100%. Right. So you need to alert people and get them together and move forward. This is necessary.
Okay, so a big step has been taken, a giant step rather in that direction maybe has been taken at the end of this 5th edition of the BIMSTEC summit. And with that, I'm being told that I'm really running short of time. Otherwise, this could have gone on and on. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I'm going to thank Ambassador Venu Rajamani. I'm going to thank Ambassador Shilkant Sharma. I'm going to thank Shrimal Fernando from Colombo, and many, many thanks, ma'am, Dr. Patnaik, all of you for such a comprehensive, yet a very short discussion and putting things in perspective so beautifully. Thank you for tuning in and thank you for joining us. And with that, it's time to wrap up this edition of DD Dialogue, India and BIMSTEC. So panelists of the opinion that yes, India certainly can lead the way in BIMSTEC as well. With that, I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks for staying tuned to DD India. After a very short break, we're going to be back with our primetime show News Night. Namaskar.